Okay, status. Benedek is hiding. So fetch. Nothing on Orchard 1. We talked about releasing. I think Benedek was here. And the next steps were clear about what to do, just one issue to fix, and then release. We'll see on Thursday if Benedek joins to give us a status. Orchard Core. So many things in Orchard Core. I don't even have enough time to review everything, and people are waiting on that. So this is Jean-Thierry. What is Jean-Thierry doing? Jean-Thierry is working on the distributed branch still, which is about having all the features handle multiple nodes. Oh my god. Oh my god, some people here know about it. I talk about it on Thursday. I need to add it to the notes. Sebastian. Oh, I have display mode. Otherwise I will forget, sorry. Display modes, I have APIs, and I have OCC. What is that? Just a topic. No, it's not a demo, sorry. It's a topic. So we have Jean-Thierry working on distributed, then he's working also on many things that we merged. We'll see that then. So this is the branch, Jasmine, removing TextFieldTextAreaEditorSettings completely. Yeah, this was just a field editor that was, what was it? That was doing nothing? Or just a test? It was just a test. Oh yes, with the color of the text editor. Yeah, it was just the color for the text area editor. No, it was just, what was it? I don't remember. Text field text area editor. Maybe that was a color thing.
Yeah, it was just adding a color field.
Okay. I was confused by the name. So yes, it was a color thing, which was just a test for the display editor.
Yep.
So we fixed it. This is Jean-Thierry on this branch. Matthias still working on admin trees, and I gave some feedback yesterday. Matthias is here. Matthias, if you want to say anything, feel free. I gave some feedback about the code, otherwise it's feature complete. Then we have in a dev branch, so this is still a PR, which will be merged soon. Prevent exception when search fields are not set. So Simon fixed some issues when the settings are not complete, but you will still go inside the Lucene controller to do some search. Yes. Just adding topics migration or recipe migrations. Fixes application module shapes discovery. So this is, yeah, apparently the liquid views were not found in an application, or shapes altogether were not found in the application. So if you use the application as the shapes container, because the application, the main project, the main host project is supposed to behave like a module, a top level module, then you should have found the shapes, but it was not the case. So now it's fixed. From Jean-Thierry, Jasmine, we merge his PR about the options editor. It's beautiful. Almost too much features for me, with the possibility to edit the JSON directly, which is nice, but it will scare people. But that's okay. Fix bugs in settings recipe step from Himanshu. Fixing the recipe the setting step. Okay. Siaman created a PR. Yes, because I downloaded it. Interesting. Why do I have it? Maybe I have him as a remote. So Siaman found an issue and suggested a PR, but I didn't quite like the solution. It was so the issue was that we could not use more than one join statement in a SQL query. In a SQL query, meaning in the dynamic queries using SQL. So he just added 5 more, or supported 5 more, and I changed it by supporting n. So now it can be as many as we want. It's not hard-coded. Fix for option editor from Jasmin. A fix. It's fixing stuff.
Yeah, it's what David Hayden saw because the focus was getting removed from the value field every time someone was typing something.
Good. Fixing issue with YouTube field, which is always required. Apparently a bug in the YouTube field, and at the same time we will have to move this YouTube field to a video field because now we support both editor and display modes. We'll see that. Yes, apparently I have Siaman's repository as a remote because I get all his branches. These are merges for the GraphQL branch. These also fixes feature step when no feature is able. Yes, so I think it's Himanshu found the issue if you use a step with both enable and disabled features, then it was not working. So Chantry fixed that and also refactored how it was done, so it's much better in every way. Passing SQL parameters, documentless queries. So yes, Siaman found this issue if you create a custom, because he was working on SQL queries, if you passed parameters to a query that doesn't return documents, then the parameters will not be taken into account. He fixed it. Simon added a copy button to the HTTP request task editor. This is from a recommendation we gave last week. This is Jasmin on which branch? What is that? Oh, yeah, so Jasmin is working on changing all the checkboxes with fancy checkboxes. This is Nick and /James working on the JSON API branch. Then Antoine made a PR to test ASP.NET Core 2.2, and it's not working because I need to update the SDK too. Fix on the copy icon. Layers deployment step bug fix, so fixing the layer deployment step and also creating a Lucene deployment step. Adding field display modes, which I will show after that. This is on the branch to 2. Adding tenants APIs. This is, what is that? This is a branch for PR. I will show you. They've added custom settings deployment step, and Himanshu added the new custom settings deployment step. So we have all the deployment step, I assume, or maybe we are still missing some of them. And more PR questions.
So this is Himanshu. I was wondering if it would make sense to have a deployment step for deployment plans, sort of.
Oh my God.
I know.
Yeah, why not, to back up your deployment plans? I mean, that would make sense.
Okay.
Yes, that will make sense. It's super meta. Be careful because no, can you do that? Actually, I don't think it will work. Because if you run the deployment step, that itself exports the deployment step, you might get into recursive loop. Because to deploy that, you will use the deployment, which will itself, and we will try it, it might work. It's just about registering the step, not executing them. So that should be fine. Yeah, good. That's fine. Yeah, if you really want to do a backup, you need that. A step we don't have right now, and that will be super useful, and I don't know why we don't have it yet, is the assets step. So we could select some folders and the media from there for, well, the assets will be also extracted into the zip file. That is something we don't have and that we need. At least the all assets, if too complex for now to define specific folder with a hierarchy. If you have nothing to do and you have assets. I don't see anything else we could export. Well, you can always export more stuff, but for now that will be okay. Other questions? Demos. Who wants to start? Nick, you want to start? And we can talk about GraphQL. Do you want to show something?
No, I think everyone's seen the stuff that I've done. I've just put it into another branch.
So we'll just talk about it then. So Nick is back. I don't know where he was for the past month, but he's back working on GraphQL, integrating all the things from James, who made stuff for fields and widgets. James knows more about GraphQL than the specs. It's crazy. And so because the PR contains too many things and we need to merge stuff, and the most important thing is the GraphQL queries, Nick has created a new branch NPR with just the GraphQL queries. So it will be much easier to review it and merge it. And because the tests were requiring some mutations in GraphQL 2, but we want to take it on later because we want to fix the security issues with that, security concerns, and to solve the concerns at least. We started to create some custom APIs to get the functional test to work, because you might not know that, but let me show you. It's very interesting. Something to see for those who don't know about it. If you look at Nick's code, and I go to pull request, GraphQL queries.
You actually looked at the test, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, huh?
Pretty cool. Code is not as cool as my functional test, but that's in the middle. That's different things.
Go back to the pull request. Okay.
And then I will go to test, modules. No, not modules. It's not testing the modules. It's testing this thing and APIs. And if you look at GraphQL, let me show you how you can find it again. Okay, if you look at the blog post test, and then you will see that it will do blog context. So the this it test as blog context.initialize blog async. What this thing does, go to the blog context, it's inheriting from site context and calling some GraphQL APIs to build something, like it's adding a field, okay, to the blog. Well, it's querying here, so it's not doing anything, but where is the initialize? So it's doing nothing special. So let's look at site context, which contains the initialize async that was called in this class. So this guy, though, it does the thing. So initialize async will, oh, this is using my new thing. Oh my God, you're crazy. So this is calling an API. It was not doing the same thing before, but that's fine. So it's using APIs to, but how do you set it up? No, that's not what I wanted to show. What I wanted to show was that thing. Orchard test feature. Okay, so site equals new orchard test feature, site startup. And by doing that, it's creating a new instance of orchard running this startup. So you know that, like, we have the orchard core.cms.web CS proj that contains one startup that just says use orchard core and add orchard core. That's all it does. This startup is the same thing, but instead of being a CS proj, it's hosted dynamically by this code. So the unit test will start the site represented by this startup. So if we go to this startup, it's a startup class that says add orchard CMS, and use Orchard Core like any other Orchard app. But this one will use the lambdas that we provide to configure the Orchard Core instance, which is in this case the CMS, and add custom features. So it says when you run this Orchard Core instance, enable the tenants features and API GraphQL feature, because the goal of this test is to check that GraphQL works. And to make GraphQL works, it needs to get some APIs which are in the tenants API to create new tenants. Okay, and also registering a custom authorization handler, which will just say anyone who needs some permission will get it granted. So it's not testing the permissions pipeline at all. It's just testing the feature itself, the GraphQL feature, if it works or not. Okay, so but that's super nice to be able to create a startup class and just bootstrap it from a unit test. Okay, and in this case, this unit test will launch the main Orchard app host and then create a tenant dynamically, the only tenant, the default tenant, by calling into the API. It's an HTTP API, REST API that will be called API tenants create to create a tenant, and then API tenants setup to set up the tenant. So everything we did in the past week, remember, with the SaaS module, where we will create tenants dynamically and set them up dynamically. Also what Antoine did with the workflow activities to create and set up the tenants. Now there is also a REST API to do that, create and set up tenant. And then from any authorized endpoint, you can manage your tenants. We can always add more, but at least we have that. And this allows Nick to do his unit test for GraphQL now, without the need of having mutations all created in GraphQL. So just REST API endpoint, and then creating some content with new APIs that I will show you. So that's cool. Just wanted to also mention how the tests work. And then, so this PR contains
show the DSL for creating a content item as well. So jump to blog post test and then scroll down. So see the DSL there for creating a content item. I'm sure we can tidy this up, but that's pretty neat.
This is using REST APIs or just?
Yes, using your REST API. So create content item was the thing that you just showed. And all I'm doing is I'm building a content item and then I'm sending it over the, it serializes it to JSON and then sends it over the wire. Well, sends it over to the, to a HTTP client.
Thinking.
Because remember that at the moment it's just a bare bones content item. So you have to do a world or else the part doesn't exist. But yeah, it works pretty nicely.
Is that the well that was existing already?
Yes, I never added anything additional for that. I even got fields to work. If you scroll down to the bottom, you should see the one for fields, which was a bit more funky than I thought. Keep going. No, not that one. That's just a query. Keep going. It's a bit of an overloaded term field there. That one's a bit weird.
Yeah, because you know the internals of Orchard, but this could be exposed as a more like add field or yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it works pretty nicely. There is a bit of a weird bug where you do weld content part, so on and so forth, and it actually doesn't update the JSON inside. But I got it to work like this, so I was quite happy with it.
Okay, and you didn't want to use a JObject to build that?
Why?
I don't know, maybe straightforward, like you see the JSON document directly?
No, then you know what the JSON document is, and the test isn't about testing what the JSON document looks like.
Well, but the test isn't about testing this method either. I mean, you need the content item somehow, so...
Yeah, but, this is the easiest way. I found this really easy to do. If I had done a JObject, then I would have had to have gone and looked at the what the JSON would have had to have looked like in order to post it across. And I didn't have to do that in this instance.
Can we have both approaches?
Yeah, you can already. You have that. You can still also create a JObject and serialize it to send it with the query. So let me show you how the queries work, because you will understand what I meant actually. Sorry. I have the context. Might not have it. So yeah, so this is using the APIs, and so let me show you the APIs and let me demo the things. It's not yet merged because I'm working on the. Oh, well. By the way, I will show you how the security is handled since this morning. Well, since 10 minutes ago, because I worked on that this morning with Kevin, Pinpoint Towns.
Your APIs don't work, but they do work in my branch, by the way. So
they are awesome. They work. I tested them. I don't know what you had to fix. What did you fix in your branch to make them work?
You need to do from body on the object, so that when I post a piece of JSON in, it knows to deserialize that piece of JSON.
But I do that.
No.
API controller. What is that?
Then you must have just added that.
No, it was there yesterday, dude.
It wasn't.
17 hours ago. Hey, I didn't change it since the day since yesterday. I tested everything. I don't know what you're missing.
It definitely was not there.
Well, okay. If you want to play this game, I will win.
Sorry, on the setup control, on the tenants one. Sorry.
Okay, that's different. So the tenants one. Why would you need that on the tenants? The tenant was working also. That's weird because I tested it. I was super proud. I'm like, yeah, I can create tenants from the API. Where is the tenants one? Tenants. So I agree there is no from body, but why do you need the from body here? A from body. So that you mean, oh, I see, because you, okay, yes, I see what you mean. So maybe I must have passed them in the query string then.
Well, yeah.
But no, that's fine. That's fine. The from body works with that. You don't need from body for that.
You do. If you're doing a JSON post across, then you do need a from body, or else it will create the object, but all the values will be empty.
Well, then I will try it and see if it doesn't work again.
My test tells you it will work.
Well, your test. Oh, in your tests, did you set the header content type application JSON?
Yes. Yep.
That's weird. Because if you don't do that, it won't work for sure.
Yeah, application JSON or whatever it is, and also with an accept JSON too.
So maybe the Postman is doing something that does it make it work? I don't know. Interesting, because it works definitely from Postman, and it will be easy to show you. So let me show you. So this app is not running. I stopped it. So let me start it again. So I'm running this app. So this app is on my branch with the tenants APIs and the new contents APIs. It's not about showing a bunch of APIs. I want to show you also the permission, how it works. Something I worked with Kevin this morning, and that's interesting. Lots of questions, but answers. So this site is a SaaS recipe, and it has two tenants that I created with the APIs, by the way. So it has the blog tenant, which is just a blog with a blog post and about page, normal. It has a blog too also, but I don't think it's set up. It's set up also. So if I go to admin, I will go to, so I will authenticate. And I will go to tenants, and we will see I have blog, blog 2, and default. If I open Postman, I will go in my collection called tenants called create tenant, okay? Create tenant, which calls into API tenants create, and you see, Nick, that's why it worked for me, because I passed everything on the URL. So these things were passed on the URL and not in the body. That's why. So now I get what you mean. So I will try it also. And so if I say blog 3, so I put the values here. Shut up. I put the value here, and it changed that there. Why isn't it putting them in the body? Maybe there is an option. That's weird. Okay, well, so I should have a cookie. This is an entry4j cookie, and this is my auth cookie. Okay, and because it won't work anymore. So it won't work anymore, but I will explain why. And this is what you will send, and it will create a tenant. And then to set up a tenant, so the create tenant contains the name, the request URL prefix, and I will show you the other options. For the setup, you need more things because I didn't specify them in the create tenant. So we need the name, the site name, the name of the tenant you want to set up, the database provider, optionally a connection string, the admin, the password, the name of the recipe. There is another option which is recipe itself. I haven't tried it, but you can pass a recipe in the post body. So if there is no recipe name explicitly that you want to run, but you want to pass the recipe by yourself, you can do that. Did you use that, Nick? Or you could have used that actually instead of creating content items.
I thought about that, but I actually just wanted to see if I could replicate the DSL I already had in it, and it kind of just worked. So yeah.
But yeah, I will try that at some point. I know I implemented it, but I haven't tried it. Maybe it doesn't work. So passing a recipe directly in the setup message would be cool. So that's the two new APIs for tenant management. And for content, I create, so get content still works. Get content, so API content, the URL has changed, is the content item ID here, and you get the result like this. This one should work. It works, okay. And you get the content item. Create content, which works for both updating, creating a content in Orchard is always creating a new version, okay? And you can pass draft or not. See, if you don't pass anything, it will create a published version. If you pass draft equals true, it will just create a new draft, okay? Or replace the existing draft. And what you need here is, where is the body? In the body, you just need the content item ID. Oh, is that the body? Yeah, content item ID and the values you want. And you see here, you pass the parts and the fields on the article, everything like this. And this is why I wanted to show you this body, because that's what it's doing by using the API he made to create this document using the Orchard Core Content API instead of creating a JSON object or JObject directly, because you could just say new JObject and inside new JProperty content item ID value that, new JProperty display text, blah, new JProperty article, new JProperty subtitle, and so on. Okay, so you could build a JObject in C# like this and just send that. It's just using a more how do you say that? Not Poco, but fluent API way to do that.
A more fragrant API.
Yeah, fluent API. That's what we use.
Yeah.
And then delete content, which is calling remove async, and that works. Now this thing will also work. So if I go there and I create a fake ID, a new one, and I remove, I don't need the content item. I'm not in the body. Where am I? Authorization, body. Okay, that's it. Okay, this was just okay. So if I go there, body, content item ID, I will put a new value. I want to remove draft and display text body sum. Okay, I could remove that. And with that, if I go in the blog itself, admin, I have many tests, you see, and if I do send, it didn't work. 400 bad requests. That's the demo effect. That's the demo effect. Maybe it's my authorization, so let me get a new token. Okay, I will delete all the tokens to be sure. I have the token, I close it. Headers, content type, and my authorization header. Body, send. And it doesn't work. Well, it was working this morning. That's so sad. I don't know. It looks like anti-forgery issue, but I'm not testing that, so it should not be an issue. Just I wanted to mention. So what I did. So this is not merged yet, or even pushed on this branch. I changed the authorization here for all the API controllers to only accept the bearer token authentication with JOT tokens, and also to ignore anti-forgery token, and also to allow anonymous users to execute the APIs. The idea is that we need our APIs to be accessed by anonymous users, so to not require authentication, but if a user is authenticated, it should also work. If we accepted the cookie authentication, we will need the anti-forgery token. Otherwise, we could forge from external sites requests to these APIs, and that's super dangerous. So we can't use cookies without anti-forgery token. At the same time, we don't want to have to pass an anti-forgery token, so we have to ignore it. And to be able to prevent the issues of ignoring it, we need to use a bearer token. So that's why I think we should force all APIs to only support bearer token and or allow anonymous if they don't care about authentication. And in this case, if I go to the content APIs, which is, let's say, the most common or simple to understand, in this case, the same parameters, API content, the get here will be accessed usually by an anonymous user. Okay, that's fine, but we still check the permission. So if the anonymous user has the view content permission for this content item, that's fine, we can return it. But then if I'm calling the get with a custom user account using a custom bearer token, then it will check for this user his permission to view a content item. That will work too. And same thing when we have another verb like post delete. This will go on with and without authenticated user, but then we'll check the permission all the time. Okay. So as long as we have a permission check for the current user, either it's anonymous or not, we are safe. And these are good parameters. The only caveat here is that if we don't have a scheme defined to handle the bearer tokens, this attribute will fail the query. So if I don't have the OpenID validation feature enabled, I won't be able to call into APIs, even the ones that allow anonymous users. That's the only caveat. So I will repeat it. If I don't have the OpenID validation feature, this won't work because this thing will break. That's a requirement to be able to call APIs in a secure way. We might be able to add a custom handler that would handle bearer tokens and say, okay, I will let you go through and this will be an anonymous user all the time. But the issue is that then in ASP.NET you can't have two of them. You can just have one. So if we then enable OpenID, then we need to remove the other one. So maybe this other one should be inside still the OpenID set of features. We'll have to see that, but that will be interesting, I think, for an easy accessibility of the APIs to have this, Kevin called it a fake handler, to just be a pass-through for bearer tokens and just simulate an anonymous user if there is no bearer token. But this way we will still handle that, because when you say authorize a scheme, you need to have a handler for this scheme. And right now, OpenID is the only one to support that in our core. Okay, so Nick, is it clear? Or I can give you more explanation offline, but the best option right now for our APIs is to have these three elements, and we are safe. The only caveat is that we need to enable the OpenID validation module. So it works.
Yeah, but GraphQL doesn't need anti-forgery. Use it at all because it's
so GraphQL doesn't need anti-forgery. that's the reason why mutation I didn't want it there, because that's not as easy as saying GraphQL doesn't need anti-forgery. We need to authenticate the user who executes that, and to authenticate, we need some way to authenticate.
But we still have the authorization checks inside there.
Yes, so that's as long as GraphQL queries are just about querying data, and we don't need an anti-forgery token in this case for sure. And still, no, it's still an issue, because let me give you an example. Let's say I don't have that, and you just say, you just remove everything, okay? Or tell me what you would like to add. But let's say I remove everything for a get GraphQL. You go on a site. This site could create a script that will query your site, the GraphQL endpoint, and say, give me all the content for the current user. So the site will just extract all the content that you have access to, because you have a cookie to go to your site. And with your cookie, you're authenticated as admin or whatever, and you can get all the content. So the site then can get all the content from your site, even the one that is not publicly visible, but you have access to. And this is just for the GraphQL, but if now GraphQL allows for user or whatever, and you have permission for that, then it's more than that, you see. If you had a bearer token, it could not do that, because you will not flow the bearer token from the external site. And I'm just talking about GraphQL read queries. Now imagine with mutations.
Does the authorize actually just, okay, so how do we use bearer on the author? Because I don't use the authorize attribute.
We will have to.
Can you use it on middleware?
Authorize attribute is a middleware, yes. So you can create a middleware which is the authorize filter. So this authorize attribute is just running a filter from MVC, and I assume there is the same thing as a middleware. And yeah, so this thing will try to authenticate the user and check for permissions. Here we don't say any permission or role or policy, so it will just try to authenticate using this scheme. Yeah. We can also create a feature or make a feature that will be registered before the GraphQL endpoint. Because your GraphQL endpoint is a middleware, it's not a controller, I agree, but we can still protect it.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, we'll have a look at it after this. So. And
we can protect just the endpoint or have a global one, but we don't want a global one. We just want to protect GraphQL. That will be fine, but we'll need something. We can't say we don't require anti-forgery token or whatever. No, we have to define something. And it will work with anonymous if we allow anonymous. That's fine. Yeah,
I just thought the authorized checks against the permission were fine. I didn't realize that we needed to do bearer as well.
So when you say authorize against a permission, in this case authorize will work with a policy, then it will try to authenticate the user.
Yeah.
But using what? Using cookies by default. And if
I guess so, yeah.
Yes, and then if you go on another website, then you will be authenticated using your cookies. That's why cookies is bad without the anti-forgery token. But bearer is safe because the tokens won't be flowed from the other site to your site. The cookies will. You can't forge the bearer token from an external site. You can with a cookie. Because when you go on the external site, you run the script. And when the script is run, it's with your cookies. You can define some same-site policies or secure policies, but apparently there are some flaws. There are still some flaws you can't prevent. So, yeah, well, at least if you are not from a browser or from an application or for anything, you can forge it. That's the issue. I didn't look at the comments. If there are some comments, sorry, it's blinking. Yeah, so what I had to do to make the system work, I had to enable OpenID validation and also the authorization server, and here I enabled authorization endpoint so that we can authorize an existing user and get a token, and then allow implicit flow, which is the flow I used, and then here token validation management. I create an application. I created an application. I call it Postman, so to allow this to connect. Public client, allow implicit flow. I give it a fake URL, which is valid, and I said implicit consent, but you can also say explicit consent. And by doing that, when you go to Postman and you click on authorization, there is a tool that you will point to connect/authorize, give the same URL as you passed in the client for Postman, a client ID, and then I say it was a public, so it didn't require a secret. And then when you say request token, it worked, but what it does, it goes to the authentication form if you haven't done that already. So it goes to the authentication form of Orchard. You type the username, password, and then it will go to the screen saying, do you really want the application to get your data? And this is a consent form. You say yes, and then this guy sends you a token that is added to your request here. Here you see bear token, so that when you send this request, it will authenticate you with that. Okay. So I tried it and it works. Just need to ensure there is a simpler way for anonymous users by default, without enabling that.
Does that want to IDS as well?
Sorry.
So let's say I need to enable GraphQL. I have to enable the OpenID Connect module.
Yes.
And that's OpenIdent, isn't it? Or whatever Kevin Chalet maintains.
So what's the question?
So is it easy to rewire it so that it points to a different authorization server?
Yes. There is authorization server here as a feature, but you can use another external. Oh, when you say IDS, identity server, that's what you meant?
Yes.
Yes, you can definitely use another external implementation of token server and validate it here. Totally. And you can even, but with this module, you can even define a tenant that will be the authorization server and share for all your tenants the same tenant for authorization server. So you can do identity server with Orchard right now.
Oh, you can.
As a tenant. As a tenant. And you can share it with all the other tenants if you want. And what Kevin did is that, and this is also why we implemented some features with Jean-Thierry, that you can even exit. So how we support that is from a tenant, you can resolve the scope of another one and then execute the code as the other tenant. That's what the OpenID module does. It can encrypt and decrypt token from the other tenants, from the common tenant. And I think that's where you manage it here. Let's see, you see, let me show you something, not here, authorization server it is. Settings, here, I don't remember what it was. But at some point you see the list of tenants you have in the system and you can link them. I don't know how it works. Crap. Or maybe if I need to create a new application.
So, okay, so that's fine. Okay, so it supports IDS already. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's it for this demo. GraphQL, so some progress should be in soon. We'll talk about authentication offline, but that was one of the concerns why GraphQL is not yet merged. Now it will be easier. Then, what did I miss? What I miss? APIs I showed, we talked. Nick, Jasmin, you want to show something?
What you wanted me to show?
Check the nice checkboxes, or create a screenshot and send it to us. I will show it. In the meantime, I will show you display modes. because Jasmine. So yeah, it was on Wednesday. Poor issues. Closed. Display mode. Display mode.
I don't know how to send you a file. I think I need to share or something.
Yeah, well, so yes, what was it? When was it? Blah blah blah. Yeah, so 4 days ago on Wednesday, Jasmine closes this issue. I'm like, let me reopen it. Why are you closing it? And I say we implemented editors, not display mode. The idea is, and he's like, look, you can change the display. Yeah, but you're changing the display of the editor. So say this is not with this checkbox, because you can customize the editor himself. That's not it. And so we talked on Skype, and okay, let's do that. And 1 or 2 hours after it was done. So we just need to be pushed sometimes. And so the display modes, I assume I have them on this branch that I'm running. How will I know? Which one did you do? We need a display mode for what? For text field. So it must be there. If I look at views, yes, we have it. Okay, let me show. So it works, it's there. So if I go to the blogs that I have already, I will go to content definition, types, and I will go to article. And an article has a subtitle. Oh, wow, exactly the demo I wanted to do. An article has a subtitle. If I edit that, so we had this thing, what type of editor you should be used. And we can select from different editors. So this is the same text field, but how do we edit it? Is it an icon picker, a predefined list, a multi-line text, or the standard editor, the default one, which is just a simple input box? And let's say I will keep standard. But now what is new is the type of display mode. So this is new, and now you can also extend it from external modules. I created one as an example. Maybe Jasmine will delete it later, but I don't think so. Header. I want a header display mode, and this display mode asks me to choose from H1 to H4. I will choose H. Okay, I want to choose H3, and I will save. So I just change the field, not the content of the field, just how it will be rendered, displayed. So if I go on my content items and go edit my about page, let's see if it works, because I use the APIs a lot. You see about to, and this is the text. There is no subtitle. So now if I edit the subtitle, and I say this is a subtitle, and I publish, if I go on the page, the subtitle is here. Interesting. Oh, it's a custom. Okay, I should not use article because it's a custom template. Ah, crap. I will add a new field. That's okay. I will add a new field called foo. Don't care. Text field. Save. Standard, save. Content items. About foo. I remove that and I put it there. Publish. This is, crap, it's using a custom template, so it's not even rendering all the other fields. That's a bad template. So I will create a new content type. That's the best demo ever. The one that doesn't work even. Product with a title, save, and a field, and I will create subtitle. Text field, save. Header H1. Okay, fine. New product. It will be upside down, but that's fine. Title product. This is a product. Publish. And now it will work. If I go view the product, this is a product, is a H1. Okay, so the display mode is to define which shape or which mode you want to render the field with, without having to change the templates or to create a custom alternate. It's just you can pick from a predefined list of how to render a field, and I assume soon how to render a part same way. And that allows many things. So look at what Antoine, because we didn't match some fields because we wanted editor, display editor modes and display modes. So now Antoine is like, okay, let's see what we could not do before, and now we have that. We can text field. We can have a truncate display mode. So limit the number of charts and words. Meta to add the text field somewhere specific. Syntax highlighting, translate, okay, datetimes, format, like if you use a datetime field, now you can decide how you want to render it on the front end. Not just as the raw value and let the template do, but if you want to use the generic templates, or not have to template it and just render whatever it's supposed to do using shape render. So specify custom format, just some time ago, specific time zones. It could be also using local time zone. You can have a display mode that will use JavaScript to detect the time zone of the user and render the thing inside the user's time zone. Money field, Boolean field, labels depending on Boolean values. So you can convert values to specific outputs. So if it's true, render this text. If it's false, render this text. For the media, for instance, super IDs, the media field could have a carousel display mode, lightbox display mode. So many, all the ways you want to display a media field. Same thing for content item picker. You can say, okay, I want to render my items with a summary mode, or using this template name, or using this template, because now we can have a generic display mode that just takes a liquid template. So you don't have to create an alternate. You can just edit it at the content definition level, and it will apply everywhere, unless you decide again to redefine it in your own template. That will still work. Yeah, so that opens many possibilities. Super easy to implement, but super powerful. Questions about that? Drag and drop the file into the chat window. Where is the file? Or did you add it there? Nope. I sent a message on Gitter, so I need to open Gitter. That's the new checkboxes. They are not native checkboxes, they are Bootstrap checkboxes. That's the PR from Jasmin. Okay, good. Questions? No questions? Then the last topic. So something I talked OCC. What is OCC? So I talked about it with Jean-Thierry, my Skype, because he was working on distributed features. So the distributed feature that Jean-Thierry is working on is like mostly implementations of all the services we have, but using Redis when it makes sense, like distributed caching using Redis, like dynamic caching using Redis, a signal that invalidates the memory cache using Redis. So when you have something in the memory cache, two instances, two nodes of the same cluster will be invalidated automatically. So we have that in Orchard. So it's a message bus. We have that in Orchard. Signaler, no way. No, we don't need that. Signaler is using Redis for the same thing. So why would we use Signaler, which is using Redis? Let's use Redis. It's one line of code. No need for Signaler here. Signaler has some usages, but not in this case. We don't need that. Well, give me a module in Orchard 1 that is using Signaler and that people use and require. No, an ID, like, yes, you can create a chat module for people in the admin to chat together, but you'd rather use Slack or Skype or Gitter or whatever. But there are some very nice usefulness with Signaler, but in Orchard CMS, no, you don't need that. And the signal doesn't need Signaler. We can use Redis because we already use Redis for all the other services. It's just publish, subscribe, the message bus implementation. We don't need Signaler. So come with some better ideas for Signaler. So we are talking about that because it's working on that. It's almost ready. It showed me all the features. Everything works. And then I'm like, but what don't we do? Why don't we do a feature or module that will support clustering in a better way? So today I had some notes. I have some notes. Let me open my notes. I have some notes. This one. I will show you my notes. I don't need that. Boom. So today what we have, if we look at Redis cluster, so Redis cluster works as a failover or a shard. So failover / replica, shard / partition. The idea is that when you have multiple nodes of Redis, you can define which nodes are slaves of other masters, which are actually failovers. But you can also define Redis nodes as partitions. So the idea with a failover is that all the data is replicated onto different nodes. So if one node goes down, the other one will take over. Okay. Or you can also load balance things and they will be replicated. The shard / partition strategy is to be able to scale out the memory. So if you have too much data to put on one server, then you create another one to share the data across these servers. Okay. So each node will be responsible for a partition of data. Okay. How it works is for each key that you store in Redis, the key will be hashed using the CRC16. And yeah, I was explaining actually how it works. That's what my notes are. So maybe they don't make sense to you. And then you do a modulo of this hash to 16304, and then you get a number which is obviously between 0 and 16303. And so you have a number. So any key will be mapped to a number like this randomly because it's using a hash code. And this key will be like the slot that you want to put your key on. And each node in a Redis cluster is responsible for n slots. So when you configure your Redis cluster, you say my Redis instance A will be responsible from the slot 0 to 4000. Then the node B will be responsible from 5000 or 4001 to 900. I changed the windows in the meantime, but you see how it works. You define n nodes. Each node you customize it you configure it to say which slot it should use, and when a key is sent to Redis, it will compute the node, the slot it should go in based on the hash code, and then it knows that each instance has to handle these or these slots, so the key will be deterministically sent to a specific node. So when you look for a key, you know where to look for because you know which slot it should be in, so which Redis instance to ask for. Okay, and you can have obviously as many as 16,000 Redis instances in a cluster, which is mostly sufficient for most loads. Above that, you have other issues. That's the idea. So that's how Redis works. What I suggested to do is, why not do the same thing for Orchard? So we could use Orchard nodes as failovers as today. That's what is implemented in Orchard 1 or in Orchard Core with Chancellery's branch. And we also use Redis for the message bus. But why not have Orchard natively support partitioning / sharding of nodes with the same reasoning? Like all the nodes will know each other because they're using Redis, as a matter of fact, to communicate and to send messages to everyone else. So an Orchard cluster will be defined by a Redis cluster, even if it's one instance of Redis, which is mostly fine. So every Orchard instance configured to use the same Redis database will be able to send a hi message, and everyone will get it using the message bus. And when everyone gets the hi message from a new instance joining the node, then they can send the meet message to say, hey, dude, you are new to the cluster, this is my address, and this is what I'm doing. And then everyone like this knows about every other instance on the cluster. And by doing that, we can decide when a tenant is created or activated, which node will handle that using the same logic as the the checksum to the hash to get which node should handle that. And by the way, because everyone knows everyone, they can communicate directly using REST APIs to say, please enable this tenant, and the other node will enable this tenant. And then this guy who sent to the other one, enable this tenant, will disable the tenant. Well, unload the tenant, so that he knows that the other one handles the tenant. And there is we can also share a map about which node handles which tenant, or maybe multiple nodes can handle the same tenant if we want to have some notion of replication. And then we set up some strategies to handle load balancing, so that let's say I have 3 nodes behind a load balancer, httprequestevent, Nginx, or whatever, and these guys might not know about which tenant, which node contains which tenant. So the idea is that each tenant in a cluster will be able to forward the request to the node that actually contains the tenant. So worst case, you hit the first tenant, the first node, but the tenant is on the second node. So this guy knows that the tenant is on the second node, so we'll issue the request to the other one, like a microservice, and returns back the answer. Okay, but these load balancers, they can handle dynamic maps or routing maps. So you can define, for instance, httproxy, I pointed to the documentation. You can configure httproxy to point to a custom file that contains all the mapping. So you could tell httproxy dynamically where each tenant is. So for instance, and it will refresh like every minute or every n seconds you want. So let's say it's completely out of date. The first node will get the wrong tenant request, but knows about the other one, so it will route or forward the request to the other node. That's fine. But after 1 minute, httproxy will ask for an update about the routing, what do you call that? The mapping route mapping, and then we'll get the new updated thing. So the next request will go directly on this node, so there won't be forwarding. But we can still keep the forwarding if we want. There should be internal request. It should be fast. It's like as fast as another proxy. And the idea will be that you just add a new orchard node to a cluster by just setting the same configuration with the same release, and then automatically we could have some logic to have the new tenants instantiating on the new node, or to distribute the existing load on the other node, or to change all the tenants in. Well, we can imagine all the strategies we want. It's just about features defining these strategies, and this module will be super easy to do, actually, and so that will allow us to have a SaaS solution that will grow as many sites as you want. Maybe there is only one customer with a .nest, but that will be at least a nice, interesting way to do things, to scale out your Orchard instances on multi-tenancy. That's called Orchard Core Cluster feature, OCC.
So would I be able to hit, so let's say I've got one tenant.
Yes.
Would I be able to run one tenant across multiple nodes?
Yes, but that's what we do already. That's a failover. So when you define multiple nodes today, they share all the tenants. They create all the same tenants. So then you have a load balancer to hit the same thing. That's what I assume patient does. Okay.
Yeah. So actually, we've got one requirement of patient. So where I need one database, but I need one node to be able to talk to this database and just serve APIs, and another node to talk to the same database, but to serve UI.
Interesting. Interesting.
Is that possible?
Yes. So what I will do is you create two different tenants, but configure with the same database, and then one tenant.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But
so no. This is doable. I'm just thinking. So you just need to change where. The shell settings. No, that's fine. That's fine. You create two tenants with two shell settings, so they will have different features, and you need to store the feature set not in the database, but in the file system or in something local to your node. Right.
Okay. So it's like in tenants.json. So the API one would have a tenants.json, but would just features the API, and then the website would have the other one.
It's just a feature store, and I think I talked about it with Jean-Thierry also.
Okay.
So the feature store should be independent from the database. So you just need a custom a custom yeah, a service for the features. So it looks on the file system, for instance, or the environment variable or whatever, but somewhere different than a database. Otherwise, it will be shared across the tenants, and we don't want it to be shared. That's it. So that's different than orchard clustering, but yeah.
Yeah, well, it would work quite well with orchard clustering anyway, because the APIs would scale one way and then the site would scale the other.
You could have a cluster for, well, it's different. What you want is really duplicate the same tenant everywhere. So it's, yeah, if orchard cluster will support that too, because it will support like balancing the tenants on different nodes, while you just say, well, I don't care about balancing, copy it on the different nodes. So if there is a new node, just do the same thing. But today you don't need that, because even Azure Scale Up supports that. When you scale up the instance, it will duplicate the same instance, so it will work for you.
Yeah. Okay. So what if I created a piece of content through the UI, through the website, with the APIs, would the API cache would be killed off? Like, would the two talk to each other?
What do you mean talk to each other? No, the API takes it into account and creates it in database. So all the nodes now have it. And the cache would be, yes, invalidated on all instances, because use Redis to communicate. Yeah.
Okay. Could work. Cool.
Good. So that's the next big idea, I think. Maybe Jean-Thierry will do that. We'll see. Questions? Comments? Imanchu, you can ping me on Skype if we can talk, okay, for your feature. Thanks everyone. See you on Thursday.
Oh, Sebastian, your branch, your API branch, do we need to upgrade our version of C#? I think you've put a feature in there that's C# 7.2 or something like that, and it's breaking the test, or breaking the build actually.
That's weird. The API branch? I didn't know I changed anything.
Your API branch. If you look at the tests, it's actually not breaking tests; it's breaking the build, because yeah.
Send me a pointer. I didn't know I.
Sorry, I'll send it to you on Skype.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway.
Bye bye everyone.